Well, good evening, friends. I hope everyone's doing well tonight. I haven't live streamed in about a week, and what a week it has been. It has definitely been an interesting week. So, the first thing we will do is have a moment of silence for the people of Ukraine. Okay, I hope we all can. I suspect we can all agree that that is appropriate. It certainly seems that um, well, let's just put it this way. My heart is with the people of Ukraine. I find it interesting the people that, the little group that we have that comes around here tends to be, um, have a wide range of opinions about that which is political. And so there's probably those who have a different opinion than me about the war. But um, my sympathies definitely lie with Ukraine, and I do find it frustrating. The Today was a day of setbacks, basically, in terms of um, the world's bureaucracies, um, the EU making moves toward providing assistance, and then I don't know the details. I just heard this secondhand from Valerie, but apparently there are some bureaucratic log jams that mean that the aid that was voted to be given can't actually get to Ukraine. So I don't know the story behind that, but that's what I heard secondhand, and that's a pretty deflating, um, eventuality, since obviously the people of Ukraine are really. I guess for me, the whole idea that the whole world is just going to stand aside and just kind of sniff and say, it's just terrible, terrible what's happening to the people of Ukraine. We do feel sorry for them, and we do wish them well. I find that a little disingenuous. So at the end of the day, what's going to happen is um, probably not going to go well. And so anyway, but I mean, if anybody tunes in who is from Russia, which I don't know if anybody that comes around here ever is from Russia, but I certainly would love to hear your take on what's going on. And maybe there are issues because of sanctions and stuff that have kept people from Russia from actually even having access to, YouTube. I don't know. I really don't know. So, anyway, we do need to get on with life. And this has been an eventful week. It's been a challenging week because on the commercial media front, I moved all of my web hosting for my clients over to a secure server. So I was definitely a late adopter in implementing the secure sockets layer that makes it so when you go to a website, you don't see this alarming message that says, hackers may be trying to steal your data, which 99.999% of the time is just hogwash. And I won't bore you guys with the technical reasons why that's clearly and obviously true. But Google's been pushing for encryption everywhere for about 10 years now. Maybe not quite 10. But as I say, I was a late adopter, and I decided to take the jump and make the move to a new server. And what I found, that my experience was somewhat demoralizing in the sense that you sort of get the story about how seamless the transition's gonna. It's like upgrading. It's like upgrading software. It's like when you get a new version of Krita or something, and you get enthused about all the features But there's just so much that you're not told about the gotchas and the things that are buggy and the things that really don't work right, or the things that you're going to have to do to compensate for the fact that the promise and the reality don't match up that well at all. Not to pick on Krita, but that's so much the standard in the world today. The standards for customer service are just atrocious. Where companies like Network Solutions, for example, have their customer service technical support through a chat mechanism is so bad, so time consuming, and it's completely normal and routine for them to give you the wrong or definitely incomplete information. So you wind up having to go back and have another 2-hour session and go through all the preliminaries where you give your password, well, not your passwords, but your you confirm your identity and all this kind of stuff, only to find out that you spend the first half hour being told everything that you already knew. And oh my gosh, I'm sure you guys have all dealt with it. It's really, really trying. But for the most part, we're through the transition. It took about a week, and that's pretty much why I haven't been live streaming. Is because the commercial side of my business has been really consuming a lot of my attention. So that's bad news. Now I'm going to look at I have a suspicion that this live stream is not actually public right now. So, because there's nobody here and that's weird. So let me look. Yep, unlisted. Done. Save. There we go. So, sorry about that, friends. I had typically when we do a live stream, I mark after a certain period of time, I mark the videos as unlisted, and then put them in a playlist. So the Animation Truman Show is in a playlist on my YouTube channel. Well, because quite a few days went by since the last playlist, or since the last live stream, I had gone ahead and marked all of them, all the recent ones as unlisted, and put them in the playlist. Well, the problem with that is YouTube, when you set up a live stream, YouTube only looks at the last live stream you did and what its status is. So if the last live stream you did is set to unlisted, then when you go to do the settings for the next live stream, which is this one going on right now, YouTube assumes that you want the actual live stream to be unlisted, which of course is insane. But that's what they do, and so hence this live stream was unlisted. But normally if nobody shows up in terms of viewers within 5 minutes, I know that that's the mistake that I made, and indeed that's what happened. So I don't know that anybody's watching right now, so what I'm going to do is actually go to this live stream, actually mute the audio, copy it into copy to the clipboard, and post it on Discord so people know that I'm live streaming. So anyway, bear with me here, folks, for just a second while I make an announcement on Discord indicating that I am indeed live right now as we speak. And I'm going to put something on Darren's channel in general chat, because I'm actually kind of hoping Darren shows up tonight, because I wanted to go over a few things on Salt and Light webisode 3 in regards to the voices situation, because I actually wound up using a voice for Vespar that's pretty similar to Darren's voice, and I could just have Darren do it, and I know he was sort of playing around with it. So anyway, so what have we got? Well, we've got, on the one hand, we've got the score on webisode 3. The reality is webisode 3, as you can see right here in Reaper, is getting close to done. So that's kind of the good news, is progress is going pretty well. And yeah, so there's still a few things to do. It's time to pay on the as far as sound effects and things like that, and the music needs to be mixed. So I'm gonna put the output level down here a little bit, and we're going to kind of go through and
Tracking as
listen to what we have here. So this is the recap of the last webisode that was posted a couple weeks ago.
what? You know her? She owns land in the north, where the rain still falls. Better get cracking. As for me, I think it's time to pay the king a little visit.
So you guys get a early glimpse at the next episode.
Why, Asher? Ah, Asher. How long has it been? And to what do we owe this visit?
It is always an honor, of course, to stand in the presence of the king. But now that you
I'm just playing around
mention
with how I'm
it,
going to mix the music.
Ah. Here we go.
That's what this slider is.
there
It's
is the
master
small
volume
matter of
for
taxes.
the music track.
The people are taxed beyond what they can bear.
You help the people in your way, which we greatly appreciate,
Hey,
Asher. And the king provides relief in his way.
How generous of you. You tax the landowners until they cannot pay their servants. Then you annex their lands to settle the debt. Wealth that is stolen is no wealth at all.
Stolen? How dare you? You will leave now and return to the court at your peril.
Is
So this
your
part right
will,
here,
Majesty?
I'll jump in and say, this part right here, I literally scored about an hour ago. It went really well. I'm finding that it's easier to just, just flow with it, and just play what I feel. And that's really the goal in scoring is I want to get good at capturing what I feel. I don't consider myself particularly great at it at all. So it's always nice when it works out.
How?
Right? So this whole section right here, I just laid down a little while ago, and when you're in the zone and you feel it, it usually doesn't take that long. And this is much harder for me than other types of musical stuff. Like if I created a radio jingle, like a 30-second song, for like an advertisement jingle type thing, I can usually write it and produce it and the whole thing, sing all the different, harmonies and play the guitar and play the keyboard, the whole thing, and the whole thing will be done in like 4 hours. It goes really quickly. Scoring's, God, I tell you, scoring's harder because maybe it's because I'm a guy. I'm a guy and I have a hard time just kind of getting in tune with my feelings. I don't know. It's definitely more challenging.
How dare you? You will leave now and return to the court at your peril.
Is this your will, Majesty? Or is Golek truly our king?
You are banished from this court until the rains come.
As you command, Majesty.
So I think that's going to work pretty well. That felt pretty good.
Majesty.
I
Perhaps
wanna bring the
Asher
music
does
down
have a
quite a bit.
point. What? Well, you cannot collect taxes or debts
Hey, Mar.
on empty land.
I'm just
What do you
working on
mean
this.
by
I
empty?
did some scoring today, and the episode is pretty close to. I'm gonna have to lay in a few sound effects, but we're getting pretty close. So, as I've sort of indicated on earlier live streams, my expectation was that webisode 3 was going to go quicker, and indeed it has. So, I'm just kind of playing around with that, and then I'm just reviewing sort of publicly here, so you guys can kind of see what I'm working on, and then I'll be jumping over here, and I expect I'm actually going to be doing some animation / ink and paint from the remaining shots in episode 2. So we're like jumping a half hour ahead here, actually. I mean, this is the second 24-minute episode, and of course we're on the third segment of the first 24-minute episode as far as finishing up and releasing them. So that's what I'm doing. So yeah, that's what's up. So I'm just kind of reviewing this. I've been away from it for an hour or so, and I just wanted to check it with fresh ears, and I figured I'd go ahead and live stream because I've been off for a week, dealing mostly with web server transitions, moving all the clients over to a secure server. There are gotchas related to DNS for the most part that you would understand. The main problems come from clients that are, for example, they might have registered a domain with Network Solutions and it still remains over there, but yet they're hosting with me and I'm on GoDaddy as far as my web servers go. So that can create some gotchas because somebody ultimately has to be the ultimate arbiter of the DNS for the domain. And usually when things go really stupid, it's actually got to do with email, not the actual web hosting. So anyway, got one client that's got webmail problems, which should not have anything to do with the pointing the web server to a different IP address, and yet Network Solutions technical support is so bad that they've given me wrong or incomplete information multiple times, such that the client hasn't been able to receive webmail for like 5 days. It's really, really, really ridiculous, but there it is.
Cannot collect taxes or debts on empty land. What do you mean by empty? I hear of nobles going north to where the land is fertile. But what if Carliana's Northlands were part of your kingdom? Without the support of the nobles, how can we raise an army? Not war, Highness. An alliance.
That's too loud.
What do you mean? Well, the prince is of age, as is Carliana's daughter. Can it be arranged? I can only try, my lord.
Man, he's syrupy, isn't he? Got to put a sound effect in there.
His Highness the Prince and the Honorable Tobias.
So anyway, this is where I was kind of hoping
we were
that
just talking.
I was hoping Darren would come around because he was playing around with the voice of Vespar, and the voice I decided to use is kind of a Darren T kind of voice.
His Highness the Prince and the Honorable Tobias. Yes. We were just talking about you, my son.
Father, I saw Asher on my way in, and he didn't even speak to me.
That meddler is an enemy of the crown.
What? Asher?
So
The
as
holy
you guys
man?
can see, I basically made the creative choice to go ahead and, even though this story, or the series really happens thousands of years ago, I made the decision to use the kind of British voices for the royals, which I think is probably not too big of a sin because it is kind of what people might expect, associate with royalty, and this is just a cartoon after all, so hence the voice of the king is basically it's the colonel from
In 101 Dalmatians, he was he was also Colonel Hathi in the Jungle Book. Yes, same voice. And, yes, quite a very erudite type of British voice, sound very full of himself, that sort of thing.
So I decided, okay, we'll give Vespigi that voice, and then what do we do with his son? And I figured with his son we'll do, well, Father, I don't understand what's going on. I'm a little confused. So, which again, that's kind of Darren's voice. So if Darren toned down his, he has a hard time with the short U sound. So he can't say cup very well. He says cup, right? And if we could get the U's under control, I honestly, I think I could swap him in for the voice of Vespar, and he'd do a great job. So that's what I'm thinking.
What? Asher?
The holy man?
But yeah, there's no girls in this episode.
If I may speak, Highness,
Yes, by all means, Tobias.
one might say that Asher is the voice of the people.
Yes?
Well, surely the king must hear the people's voice in order to rule with wisdom.
Yeah, I'm actually feeling
Majesty,
like I'm feeling like I like the way the swelling contrabass there. Let me see. Yeah. Yeah, I really want it to be like that. But I like what I'm hearing there. So pretty simple music. It's one note.
Voice of the people.
Yes?
Well, surely the king must hear the people's voice in order to rule with wisdom.
Majesty, I venture to say there are more pressing matters to attend to than Asher.
I'll fade that out. So yeah, I think just going ahead and stretching that. I'm just going to stretch that so it sounds like one long note. In fact, actually, what I could do is marry those two together. And, okay. Yeah, so take this one and stretch that out. Not sure what that note is, but
Highness,
Yes, by all means, Tobias.
I think I put
one might
one
say
little chord
that
change in
Asher
there.
is the voice of the people.
Yes?
Well,
Yeah,
surely
that's
the
too
king
high.
must hear the people's voice in order to rule with wisdom.
See, I just wanted a little rumble underneath it, right? To
Majesty, I venture to say there are more pressing matters to
We'll
attend
fade
to
it out
than
right there.
Asher.
And indeed, I have matters to attend to as well, Highness, with your leave.
Of course.
So now we come back to the bouncy theme.
Father?
Well, you're very nearly a man, aren't you?
I guess so.
We feel it may be time for you to take a wife.
So this part needs
Wife?
to be scored.
I don't
We
even
definitely
have a
need
girlfriend.
we need some sound effects and some stuff there. But what I'm going to do is have Vespar, we're going to go ahead and put his thoughts in there, okay?
I don't even have a girlfriend.
Right, so that's really just a thought. So I think the thing to do, let's hit Shift F. And I'm going to grab the, just for this couple, rather than put it on its own track, I'm going to go ahead and just add the free verb directly onto the clip. So this is where Vespar's, thinking, right? So let's put that there. We'll put that at 0 dB. And now, shoot. I really need that to stay on top. I'm going to have to put this on another screen. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it and then fade in the reverb and just kind of find the sound.
I don't even have a girlfriend.
Yeah, okay. That's probably too much.
Wife? I don't even have a girlfriend.
But the idea, I mean, you get the idea. I mean, that's the concept. I need to
I have
dial
a
it in a
girlfriend.
bit. Okay.
Ah, Vespa, you know a prince doesn't marry for love.
He doesn't? Majesty.
See, I actually did
if I-
I actually did that pretty much with an accent more like Darren's. Now, he might not think so if he heard it, because obviously he speaks it natively. But, yeah, I said, he doesn't, as opposed to, he doesn't, It's a pretty subtle difference, but there it is, friends.
He doesn't? Majesty, if I may. A ruler must think about what will best serve the kingdom and best unite the people. You've got to be kidding me.
Okay, yeah, there we go. So that's the other one. I knew there was another one here somewhere. So that's right there. I'm going to put a marker there. So M key, put a marker, come back here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that effect. Whoops. Hello. That's not what I want to do. We got a little bit of an interface problem here because if I shrink it down enough that I can see the other clip, I guess I'm okay. So I'm going to grab that effect. Whoops, again, I didn't mean to do that. So I'm going to hit Control and drag that over to here. So we have the same reverb on those two. I probably should be putting it in its
the
own track.
people. You've got to be kidding me. I'm sure you want to do your duty. Of course. Now, about those items we were discussing.
All right, and so then that's basically a transition to the end of the
I'll
webisode.
deal with Asher soon enough. But now I have other fish to fry.
Now, the fish to fry statement was actually put in there because the next thing that happens in the show is it cuts back to Melchizedek, and Melchizedek is fishing. So Gustav 954 asks, "What are you using for the voice?" I don't know what you mean by using. What can you restate your question? What am I using for the voice? Are you talking about the actual voices, or are you talking about the microphone, or, so if you could clarify, that would be quite wonderful. I would love it if you would clarify. Ask your question a little bit more clearly, and maybe I can answer the question. So as far as who the voices are, actually in this episode, the voices are all me.
So the king is this voice right here. That's the king.
And the voice of Golik is this, which is sort of a takeoff on Edward G. Robinson, that type of voice. Vespar is a little bit higher voice, and he's got a bit of a British thing going on. And by the way, it's all being recorded with this very microphone. And this microphone, if you want to know, if you go on Amazon and you look for the newer I think it's NEEWER. They basically make cheap knockoff accessories of various kinds for filmmakers. They specialize in like filmmaker accessories like Steadicams and things like that. But they have a shotgun mic that, as I say, I'm speaking into right now. The microphone I'm using right now is actually one of these. It's a $30 shotgun mic, and I kid you not, they compare very favorably with a $1,000 Sennheiser. And I know that because I've used the $1,000 Sennheiser, because back when we were doing corporate video a few years back, we used the we invested in the $1,000 Sennheiser, and so I know how they sound. And actually, all the films that I've written and directed, most of the audio on the last few films has actually been that very microphone that I just tapped on. It's a $30 shotgun mic that you can get on Amazon all day long from Newer. Again, I think it's NEEWER, if I'm not mistaken. So does that answer your question? Because you're not really talking now. I guess I was a little too slow to answer the question. All right. So Valerie's walking through the room. The most beautiful woman in the world is passing through the room as we speak. At least she's beautiful to me. Okay. So there we go. I'm going to I don't think I'm going to do any more on the score tonight. We got this section right here we need to do. And I think I'll do that tomorrow when I'm fresh. And I think what I'm going to do tonight now is go ahead and get some animation done. So the good news, as I said, is Webisode 3, Salt and Light, is actually quite close to being ready to release. So it only took about 2 weeks, which means, and sorry, I'm chewing my my olive right now from my martini. So once we release Webisode 3, we are about, we're about 12 minutes. We're about halfway done with full 24-minute episode 1. We're about halfway through it. So now tonight, what I'm doing here is I'm actually jumping to 24-minute episode 2. So that would be webisodes probably 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and, like that. So, but there's one section, as you can see here in episode 2, that still has to be animated. It's this whole section right here is still in storyboard form, so I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and just get some animation done, just have some fun. So, shot number 601. Does it exist somewhere? So, Gustav 954 doesn't seem to want to clarify his question, so hopefully I answered it. But what we're going to do is find out if shot number 601 exists somewhere already. Whether it be, it's probably not going to be a Krita. Well, 601 ping. That would be the that would actually be the storyboard image that we just saw. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Tahoma just to see if there is a... Let's find out. Let's find out, says Golik, if there's a 601. And if there is, then perhaps we'll use it. Alright. Wake up, little computer. My lightning fast 12-core machine. So this is, what did I say, 601.tnz. I'll bet you this is not going to find something. Oh, okay. Okay. It looks like at some unspecified time in the past, I did some stuff with this shot. So there you go. What you didn't know. Oh boy. Looks like I did quite a bit on it. Yep. So there we go. So we got our work cut out for us. That's pretty simple. Now I'm a little bummed. Oh, I was going to say I'm a little bummed out, but I'm not, because actually this has the correct palette too. So cool beans. So we're going to have to complete the drawing of Vespar, because Vespar walks up while Golik's kind of talking to the crowd. So that's what we have to do. That's the work we must do. So if anybody has any questions about the methodology here, just feel free to chime in, and I'll do my best to answer your questions. But lacking questions from the audience to give my life some sense of significance, I'm just gonna kind of work on the work. So work on the work. So this methodology works pretty well. I use the My Paint pencil for the pencil test, and if I'm in the groove and I'm moving fast, I'll actually just hit the 1 key and the 2 key and toggle between the pencil and the ink, so that when I'm drawing I can actually switch right into ink mode when I'm really in the zone, you know, and smack down the ink right away, as opposed to waiting and doing it as a completely separate step. Sometimes that works well, not always. It depends. Depends on a lot of things. Depends on if there's secondary animation that's clearly going to happen anyway. In other words, if I'm doing a pencil test and I'm trying to really go for the frame-by-frame animation thing, then that methodology works really well. In Krita, you can accomplish the same thing by hitting the X key, by toggling between background and foreground colors. So for me, I'll have red as my background color, and then I'll have black as my foreground color. And that way I can draw, and anytime I want, I can go, wow, that feels pretty good. I like, I kind of know the line that I'm trying to draw or whatever, and I'll just switch and immediately get the ink in there. Works pretty well. There are some gotchas associated with that methodology here in Tahoma, because of the way Tahoma and obviously OpenTunes deals with the smart raster levels in terms of the ink coverage. So if that doesn't make any sense to you, don't sweat it. Just go along for the ride. So here's a good example of where I would probably want to hit the 1 key, and this probably needs to be at -1, by the way. Okay, so in other words, what I want to do is I want to get clarity on what I'm trying to draw here. Okay, so there's his thumb, and then what I'll do is I go, okay, I found it. I got what I want. All right, so then I'll hit the 2 key and just go ahead and ink it right now, kind of thing, like that. So you can see that the ink is aliased. It's got stair stepping. We don't care about that because in our level settings, we're going to turn on the anti-aliasing, and when it renders, it's very smooth. Now, you might say it still looks a little stair step, but it really isn't, because if you hit N key and look at this is the actual size. So that's what we're really dealing with. So the aliasing is not a problem. And I think those who decry the aliasing when it is present, because it's pretty easy to get rid of, the reason I'm drawing alias lines is because it allows me to more firmly overwrite the red lines. And again, if you have no idea what I'm talking about or why you would have to do that, then you probably haven't used OpenTunes very much. Now, we do have a problem, actually. And I didn't notice this, but the problem is, so this is something you might want to know, is that the brush size settings are kind of global, okay? So when I set the pencil test, when I set the pencil to -1, it actually set the ink to -1 as well, which really is not what I wanted. I actually wanted a bolder line. So anyway. Okay, so here I'm going to switch back to the pencil. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch from the charcoal brush to just the regular pencil brush. That'll kind of solve the problem that I'm sort of doing a little bit of battle with. But I mean, I'm zoomed in so far that obviously, you know, this is more realistically what you're dealing with in terms of lines. But I'm zoomed in so far that it's obviously looking pretty blown up. So hit the 2 key and just go ahead and so you can see what I'm doing. As I said, it's a good way to work if you're doing frame by frame animation and you're kind of just trying to really go fast and get in the zone of just draw it, and the minute it looks right, go ahead and ink it and be done with it. Then this is a good way to operate. So we've got 5 concurrent viewers tonight. Help me out, people. Who the heck are you? And why are you here? Talk to me, baby. Talk to me. Let me know why you're here and what you're about, man. You know? Why do you think I'm live streaming? I'm live streaming to get some social interaction here. Come on, it's the age of COVID. So technically this really doesn't have to be inked because it's sort of under the radar here. So I'm just going to kind of, just for my own enrichment, I'm going to put in an indication of his, of the hand. Just, you know, never hurts to practice drawing, right? So Sifter, hey Sifter, good to see you, buddy. How's your project going? I've definitely been singing your praises here on the live stream when I've been live streaming. Sifter's doing this thing, you know, Sifter's really good at drawing in a very, what I would call a garden variety, dyed in the wool, but darn good anime style. You know, like exactly what you'd sort of expect from a lot of anime. You know, obviously there's variation in the styles that people draw, but I really like Sifter's drawing, and the project he's working on. He's being real meticulous about. You might say data logging. Like he's keeping really close track of his own productivity and how much he gets done and how well certain procedures are working, and he's really taking a bit of a scientific approach to the project, which I really respect. I think that's a great great way to proceed. He's injecting a level of discipline into the process of creating, you know, animation that most people don't do. and I think it's quite admirable. So I've been stuck for a week trying to learn 3D sculpting. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming you're using Blender. 3D sculpting in Blender is really not too hard. But there are a lot of tools. I mean, in terms of, I think it's like anything else. So I would say, if I was going to do sculpting, for example, on a head, which is oftentimes what you're doing. Obviously, number one, you're going to be in mirrored mode, But I think actually in Blender the sculpting I think starts out in mirrored mode by default these days. Anyway, so I actually did a really cool head, 3D head of Boris Karloff's Frankenstein in Blender about 10 years ago. So hey, Ineos. So I was using Blender 2.4 something. I don't know what the exact version was at that point in time, but it's fun. It's fun. I could get back into when it's appropriate and there's a good reason to do it. I'm sure I'll jump back and do more of the 3D stuff. That was as far as animation. I mean, I've always been a cartoonist, but as far as animation goes, that's where my background was in. In the late 90s, actually, I got into it, and so I was using a program called True Space, which of course no one's ever heard of these days, but it's it was a pretty good. Actually, it was horrible for character animation. Really sucked for character animation. They just didn't have any tools for that. But as a modeling interface for the lion's share of stuff you do in 3D at that time, it was really a pretty good program. The renderer wasn't bad. It was a typical scanline renderer type situation. Kind of like the Blender. Do they even have a name for what's the traditional renderer that's been in Blender for years? I don't know if they actually have a name for it. It's just a scanline renderer. Of course, they added ray tracing, 10 years ago or whatever it was. So, good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good show. So here's a good example also of what I was talking about, where I want to suss out the wrinkles. You know what I mean? So I want to find it with the sketch pencil, and then once I've found it and I'm going, okay, that looks pretty good, then just hit the 2 key and boom, just like ink it right now. It's not always the best way to work, but I have to say, generally, I do like working that way because it doesn't leave ink as this sort of laborious extra step, and the results look pretty good. I mean, typically when you play it back and stuff, it's like, well, it looks okay. So, oh my gosh, look at all the comments. 3D heads look as best they can so I can use them in production. Yeah, I could totally see, doing some 3D models, either to use as reference, or obviously you could render the 3D stuff in a 2D mode with either freestyle or however you want to do it, but it definitely makes the posing process a little easier for you. Hey dude, pinged you a few times. Animate them, then rotoscope using grease pencil. It's the plan for now. Yeah, and by the way, one thing. Well, okay, I probably shouldn't. I don't want to muddy your workflow at all. Back in the day, the way we did it was we set up two cameras, which any smartphone would work for this today, but we set up 2 cameras 90 degrees apart from each other. And originally we were using Hash to do animation. I say we, it was really me. I mean, I was working with a friend, but all the actual animation work, I was really the guy doing it. But so we were using Hash Animation Master, and then we switched to Blender. But what we did was we'd set up 2 cameras. So one camera you'd be seeing this, and in the other camera you'd be seeing this. So you had to be kind of careful to get the camera set right, so that the levels of everything look the same. And by having a 90-degree, a front and a side of, any acting, you could then bring that into Blender in two different windows and put an armature. And I basically put together a generic rig so that we could then resize the bones, and the same rig with all the IK setups and all the controllers and stuff would work for any character. Any character, didn't matter. So I could act something out on camera, and that could actually be driving the action for any character of any body structure or anything like that. And I called it poor man's mocap because that's pretty much what it was. But that's not really what Sifter's doing, I don't think, because he's actually going to draw this stuff, with the grease pencils. So I'm just yakking. I'm just kind of telling my story. Boom, boom. Okay, so now I want to back up a little bit here and get a sense of where we're going, because this is just a tween. Yeah, that's probably good enough because he's off screen. So hit the 2 key and plus it's a tween. This is only going to be on the screen for 1 frame, so we don't have to kill ourselves. Because remember, and this is really important. I'm not trying to chimp on quality here when I say that. What I'm saying is, if you were shooting a real movie, especially if you were, you're shooting at 24p. You want it to look cinematic, so you're probably going to have your shutter speed at something like a 50th of a second. So it's usually two times your frame rate kind of thing. And what happens is you get some pretty aggressive motion blur happening, So the reality is, something that's only on the screen for 1 minute, you almost want it to look bad, in the sense that it's going to be blurry and it's just going to smear across the screen. Because that's what you would get if you were shooting real video, actually. Very, very good, high-quality video. So, I'm just saying, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the skins, because otherwise I'm going to botch this hat thing. This is actually a good candidate for 3D, if the truth be known. You remember the cell animation you took back in, okay, Blender engine, that's what it's called. Okay, we'll go with that. Yes, the internal renderer. Yeah, that's what it is. Inyo-san, what did you ask if... Did you question mark on Discord? Didn't get any notification. So that must be for Amar. Yeah, once you see. Yep. Okay, got it. Good old Hash. Good old Hash. Martin Hash and his cronies. They were a very small company. They was just, I don't know. There's probably 6 or 8 guys. They were pretty much running the show, but it was really Martin that did the programming in the early days, obviously. Martin Hash. It was really pretty impressive back then what you could do with Hash if you didn't mind the crashes and you really got to learn the program. The biggest thing I actually didn't like about Hash, other than the rendering times, the renderer was god awful slow. But the main thing about Hash, and I could show this actually because I have hey, awkward penguin. I actually have a crack of the last version of Animation Master that I ever bought, because I bought it 3 times. So I don't mind having a crack, because frankly, I've paid for the software multiple times. I kept upgrading because there was always the promise that the next version wasn't going to be the buggy monstrosity that crashed every 5 minutes. And it always turned out not to be true. But, that's what you got back in those days. Oh, wait, that's what we get today, too, with some software. But yeah, what I was going to say is the thing I didn't like was with the modeler, the way it would sort of figure out your intent when you were setting points in 3D space, it tended to guess wrong a lot. So in one view, you'd place a point, and then you switch to the other view, and you'd wind up like you'd draw this, but what you actually had when you went to the side view was this or something like that, where this point was way the hell away from where you actually intended for it to be, stuff like that. Yeah, that was pretty common back in the day. Pretty common. So this is always fun. Well, don't know how long I'm going to live stream tonight. This is the Animation Truman Show. Just doing what I do. I haven't been on for several days. You gave him wow. I didn't make it to 2008, buddy. I did not make it to 2008. In fact, the thing I was talking about where we were doing the 2 cameras for Poor Man's Mocap, we got, and then that was a show that never got finished. I didn't really see it through anywhere. I didn't get even remotely close to as much done as I have here on Salt and Light. But anyway, we probably were, I would say I was doing animation and stuff for about 2 months, and then I switched to Blender, and I mean, it's amazing because this is like Blender 2.2 something. And I'm not kidding you, folks. What I was finding was what I was able to do in Hash with character animation, I was able to duplicate very well in Blender. Even back then, this is way before Big Buck Bunny. So, and frankly, well, Hash was, if you think about things like being able to reuse a rig, like just resize the bones and use, so you're like on an ongoing process of trying to dial in a rig that's like the universal bipedal rig that'll work for any character, right? I mean, that's a laudable goal. And so that's what I was working on back then. And for a little $199 program, Hash was really good about that kind of stuff. And I've probably mentioned this before, but the Animation Master files were just text files, which I think was a great choice on Martin's part. I can kind of see the argument for a binary format for Blender, just because we're at a point now where we're dealing with sometimes literally millions of vertices, but you know me, folks, I favor text-based file formats in a big way. Okay, this is wrong. Why did I follow that up? I favor text-based formats. I favor a file that I can open up and grok it out if I have to. All right. Let's see what he does here. Okay, so his hands come around like that. So actually, let's go to let's just get this blocked in. So we'll kind of get that little anatomical detail on the thumbs, and then let's just get the general shape in, and then we'll kind of figure out the fingers. That'll work. That'll work, my friends. 11 years of money. Yeah, and I of course, you don't really love the fact that you have to have a CD in the tray for the program to run. And that, for me, is another reason why I didn't really mind using a crack. But But the version that's out there that's cracked, I believe, is version 11, and it's well, I don't know. I sound like a real whiner when I talk about it because I had lengthy conversations with the guys at Hash back then. And and I'm like, guys, I want to use the software, but God, it's so freaking buggy that it crashes so much. I mean, and they just assured me. I mean, like they knew me by name, you know what I mean, back then. I swear. And they just assured me that version 11, when they changed the interface, was going to be so much better. And oh my gosh, it was not only not better, but it was probably worse. What are you going to do? What you gonna do, friends? Sometimes life will serve you a bit of a disappointment. And we still love the good men at Hash. I say men because I think they were all men. Maybe there was a girl on the staff. I don't remember. Now, that wasn't true with TrueSpace. With TrueSpace, you had Bibiana Gasparic. She was a sweet person. And I know she was because I knew her, because she was a client of mine for quite a few years, actually. So you'd call into, what did they call, what was her husband's name? He had a different last name, so I don't know if they were actually married, but it was Ramon or Ramen. I'm not sure how he pronounced it, because he was from, gosh, where was he from? He might have actually been Ukrainian. He was either Bulgarian or something like that. I don't know. So now I've insulted everybody that, is from Eastern Europe, I suppose, because I don't really know my countries apart. So I apologize for that. But, yeah, for about, I don't know, I think it was about 5 years. If you called for technical support for TrueSpace, when you were on hold, you would hear my voice talking about all the features of TrueSpace 4, or TrueSpace 5. So, the good news for those guys was, it's been quite a few years ago now, but the really cool thing that happened for them that I'm sure was they were happy to have it happen, was that Microsoft bought out TrueSpace. And then, of course, predictably, they buried it. So TrueSpace disappeared. There may still be the free version, because when Microsoft bought it, they turned it loose. Like they set it free. I'm not sure why. I have no idea what the thinking was. But okay, so geez, Dave, really, dude? Look, boom, boom. Look at that. I have committed a crime. Dude, get your slaves right. Oh yeah, well, I never went to any cons myself. I went to SIGGRAPH in the year 2000. Year 2000 was interesting because I went to SIGGRAPH to mainly because I wanted to meet up with Tan and Bart Val. How do you say his last name? Valdusen or whatever. But I mean, all the Blender guys. I mean, I was kind of known in the Blender community back then, because I helped them co-write the Blender tutorial guide book, and but I had never met them in person, because obviously I think at that point they were still operating out of the Netherlands. So it was a lot of fun to go to SIGGRAPH and actually meet them. I've told that story before about how I met Ian. Can't remember Ian. I have no idea what Ian's last name was, but he was he was with the venture capital company that had bought into Blender, right? And I remember when I met Ian, I just never forget it. He's one of these people, I have no idea who this guy is, but sometimes, okay, how do I explain this? It'd be like if you met somebody who was so like erudite or clearly really full of themselves that they're almost like a cartoon character. That's like no real person acts that way, right? But yet they do, And that's who this guy was, this Ian guy. He was such a weird character. And when I met Ian, I said to myself, this whole Blender thing with the investors is going to last about 2 weeks. Now, to be fair, it lasted about 2 months. I don't remember. No, it probably took them a year to go bankrupt. It probably took them a year. I don't know how long it was, but you could just see by what they were doing. It was like, oh my gosh, this is not going to go well. And then, of course, Blender got set free because, and you know, Tan probably is correct when he says that he thinks the ransoming Blender was in fact the world's first crowdfund. I think it might have been, because back then crowdfunding was not a thing, but he was able to raise €100,000 to set Blender free in about, I think it was 7 weeks. I mean, that's amazing. Well, it just goes to show, you know, people get on board. I swear the best place to network is in cons. Yeah, I haven't done any of that. I just did the SIGGRAPH thing because it was so much fun to see the. Back then, you know, Silicon Graphics was still a thing, and they had this. They would just have these amazing displays, you know, trade show displays. You know, all the guys from New Tech with Lightwave were there, and 3ds Max. Of course, back then I think it was still called 3D Studio Max, which I used. I mean, I'm sure I've mentioned here before, I had about $3,500 into 3D Studio Max. It was a spendy program. But Blender came along and changed my life. It really did. I loved the idea that you had this, you know. It wasn't actually free, though. I mean, when I first got into Blender, I paid for the C key. It was like $80 or something to sort of unlock all the features. But back then, I mean, they didn't even have subdivision surfaces. They had the what did he call it? I can't remember what he called his, like, smoothing and subdivision that was like real time, ostensibly for character animation. It didn't work very well at all. It was pretty awful, actually. But oh well, I'm probably boring everyone. Sorry, I meant to hit the 1 key. You know, reminiscing about the old days. But it was fun, you know. Back when, you know, the whole CGI thing was finally starting to happen. You just had, and yeah, the thing that we did with Hash and Blender was basically, it was because like A Bug's Life was coming out, and it's like, okay, well, let's do something with bugs, because if you do bugs, they have an exoskeleton, so that means you don't have to worry about skin deformation. You know, they're like a stiff model kind of thing. So that was the thinking behind that, because if you really wanted to have good deformation, you really needed to buy Maya, and at that time Maya still cost, oh brother, I don't know what it was, but many thousands of dollars. It might have been 10 grand at that point. I don't know. It was a lot just for a piece of software. I mean, Softimage was the same way. Softimage was enormously expensive. I think it was about 8 grand for a seat, if I remember correctly. Yeah, you used R3 as your first version of Max. Okay, yeah, see, I was on board with version 2 myself. Used image, wavefront. Oh my gosh. Yeah, see, I never got into the alias thing. My brother-in-law did. He was doing commercial work. And he still does, actually. It's like commercial furniture design and stuff like that. And he used alias was absolutely, I mean, alias is a really professional tool for I think what they call it is B-side surface work. So what you're doing is what happens is the engineers will create a design or a model or a spec for a product. And the problem is that, like, you can have renderings of it that look really, really cool, but it's actually not a manufacturable product. And that's understandable, because think about it, with 3D software, your two-dimensional planes, in other words, the surfaces themselves, are infinitely thin. They have no thickness to them. Think about it, because you're just rendering the outside of it. So what Steve would do is he would actually, working for like major furniture manufacturers and also for the automotive industry, he would create the models in Alias that actually specified actual manufacturable surfaces, right? Really, really important step, frankly, because if you didn't do that, you could not manufacture it. There's, you had to have something to feed into the the machines that did the actually assembled the stuff. So, or formed it, right? So that's the sort of commercial side of 3D. At least it was back in the day. I'm sure it's probably very similar today. A lot of people still using. I don't know if Alias exists anymore, if they merged it with. But the difference between Alias and Maya was that Maya was clearly designed for the entertainment industry from day one, and precision surfacing that actually could interface with, $1 million manufacturing equipment was not part of the agenda for Maya. Maya's for modeling and animating stuff so it looks cool, period. Whereas Alias was actually, industry was really their bread and butter. That's who they were selling to, is the automotive industry, designers and blah, blah, blah. So whether Blender, if you look at STL files and what you can do with 3D printing, I mean, I guess it could be argued that Blender is a professional manufacturing design tool at this point. I don't know anybody that's really done much with it from that standpoint, but I could see it. I mean, I've had ideas, product ideas, just in the last few years that would kind of make sense as a 3D printed kind of thing. So, but I ramble, as you know. I'm just rambling. Okay, so that's what Golik's doing. So these poses here are one framers. So again, we really don't need to like kill ourselves. So I'm allowing myself to be a little more meticulous. I'm taking more time on this than I need to, just to get back in the groove of drawing, because I haven't done much of it in the last week. Yeah, Rhino was good too. Yeah, Steve liked Rhino. He had a friend who was an early adopter of Max, who also really favored Rhino as a modeler. In the commercial, in the manufacturing space, Rhino was very well regarded as a modeler, and that's actually why he used Alias. Actually, is because the NURBS would resolve to. I don't know the terminology. I'm trying to say what I'm trying to say without knowing the proper terminology. But the NURBS surfaces would resolve to precise, down to the micrometer, I suppose, surface data that could then be fed into machines that drove robots and would, manufacture this stuff. So in that space, you've got to have that level of precision. 3D Studio Max, as I recall, didn't come up to that level of precision and reliability for industry. So if you're just doing visualizations to sell a product, to just a proof of concept, it was great for that. And that's what Steve's one friend, I can't remember what his name was, but that's what he did. He did a lot of previs on products in order to either pitch the design, basically pitch the design. I think you probably have situations where like one of the large auto manufacturers would use this kind of imagery back in those days in a video that would show at a trade show in order to tease the next model of car that was coming out, that type of thing. So it's an important part of the manufacturing ecosystem for sure. I've seen lots of high-end Scientific research labs and documentation use Blender for. Yeah, I'm sure it's true at this point in time. I don't know what the adoption would be in the arenas that I'm talking about. I have no idea what the adoption would be. I know. In fact, I remember actually having conversations with Steve, and I'm like, dude, you got to check out this Blender. This is like super cool. And he's like, dude, I can't. For what I do, there's no way I can deliver what my boss needs. You know, because it just doesn't have the sophistication with NURBS modeling and surfacing. So, yep, that's what it was back then. Back in the day. All right, what do we got here? We're going to go. Hey, Soda Pop. I think I seen you in a video called OpenTunes versus Animate. You saw me? OpenTunes versus Animate? I wonder. I don't know anything about that. Are you saying somebody... Okay, this is obviously my ego kicking in here, but so forgive me for sounding like, you know, I'm self-absorbed, but are you saying that somebody in a comparison of OpenTunes and Animate used my work as an example of the OpenTunes side of the argument? Is that what you're talking about? I'll have to check that out. Maybe I'm famous. I'll check it out right now. Yeah, I don't see something specifically called that, but okay, that's interesting. Well, good. Glad to hear that I'm helping people maybe decide that OpenTunes is a good tool. It is a good tool. It's got its weaknesses, but it's a pretty solid. I've gotten a lot of work done with it, let's put it that way. So, well, we're down to the last pose. Not bad, friends. Not bad at all. So it's good to be back in the saddle again. I'm not at all pleased about what's going on in Ukraine. It makes me really sad, actually. It makes me really sad to think that the world is gonna just sit by and watch. I have a hard time with that, but you know, that's me. Maybe other people have a different view on it. I certainly, as I said at the beginning of the live stream today, anybody that's from Russia and has an opinion about it from a Russian perspective, I would love to hear. I really would, because I am sure that there is plenty of misinformation from both sides of this. But certainly the world consensus is to, you know, the world's rooting for Ukraine, and I am too. From what information you can get seemingly from, you know, boots on the ground that really knows what's going on, it really seems to me that this is a travesty. At 8:05. What is it? Just a little clip of me working in OpenTunes or something, or did they actually quote one of my videos? I'll look it up. What the heck? It's fun. Because I am kind of curious who did it actually. So looks like I am live now. Ultimate head-to-head comparison. Okay, there it is, and I've got it muted, so I'm jumping ahead. Oh, yeah. That is what they did. Looky there. Yep. That's from way back when I was using OpenTunes for the Akari animation. Huh. Well, that's cool. I'm glad I was able to contribute a little something. They got Darren in there, too. They got Darren doing, from back when he was doing the lip sync thing. So I gotta say, I've said before, I have a certain affinity for Adobe just because a guy I went to high school with is Mark Hamburg, and not that that means anything, but he was instrumental in turning Photoshop into what it is today. But I have a feeling that if I went down the Adobe Animate path, I'd probably be pretty impressed, I suspect. I don't know how good the character animation tools are these days, but I'll bet you they're pretty good. If anybody knows, feel free to weigh in, but my suspicion is that they probably have a bone system and stuff that's pretty good. So if I'm wrong, somebody correct me, but I don't know. But it's all, the most important things, guys, is what do you enjoy using? Because the important thing with animation, I really want to say this. Actually, I didn't mean to go in this direction tonight, but I think it's an important point. Whoops. You're going to be spending a lot of time in your animation software. Okay? So I'm basically pretty agnostic. I do favor open source tools just because it's kind of a cool thing, and I'm kind of a programmer guy. So from my standpoint, I like that. But at the same time, $1,000 for TV Paint is a really small price to pay for the tool that's going to be, that is a tool in your toolkit that you're going to be using every day. Now I'm not endorsing TV Paint because honestly, I think that it's a darn good program. It seems to be strong stability-wise. And the crazy thing about software is that the more you do this stuff, the more stability actually becomes way more important to you than features. Like I really don't, the feature set is just not that important compared to the tool, just being able to be a tool that's relied on, reliable. And in the, you can, in the stability war, the most stable is probably Tahoma. Blender's pretty close, and Krita is pretty awful. That would be my general assessment on the stability front. So, yeah, if you're going to spend $10K, you better be doing some real animation. I agree. That's the thing. You really have to well, this could actually become an interesting conversation. The whole 2D animation thing is a bit of a mixed bag. I mentioned the other day that I respected what AMB Animation said when I asked the question about the idea of doing a sort of a self-released cartoon thing on YouTube. In that he stated that, look, that's not my shtick, and so I can't really speak to that. The reality is that 2D is having a resurgence, but if you're enamored of the old way of doing 2D, then you really are a dinosaur. I think it's a beautiful thing as a craft, as an art. It's a beautiful thing, but the economics of it don't work anymore, and they haven't for a long time. So I feel bad for people who, the number of people that are much, much, much better artists and animators than me, but who are completely dependent on either finding a job or finding some sort of opportunity or project where somebody's going to put them to work. To me, it's a beautiful thing if you can get it. It's great if you can work doing what you love. But very few people are going to try to do what I'm doing. But the thing, what I'm getting around to is that I think more people probably should, because you don't have to do a 24-minute anime. You know, you can do but don't just create a short. Creating a short's cool, but I almost think it'd be better to like create a TV commercial. You know, create something that somebody would actually maybe want to pay for. I think would be really, really a smart move for a lot of people that are toying around with the whole 2D animation thing. I'm not really let me look at the comments here. I'm not making my point very clearly. Look, I'm speaking from the standpoint. Let me share a conversation with you I had yesterday. Okay. So I'm a filmmaker and I have a film that has been fairly successful. Okay. So every once in a while I get these people that will email me or call me, and yesterday was one of those days where I get a call from a guy and he has a really good looking picture that he produced. And he's asking my advice about distribution. So he's asking about specific distributors, whether they're trustworthy, you know, do they pay on time, kind of thing. And I'm just giving him the straight information, what I know, right? And I asked him, you know, what's your budget on this picture? He tells me the budget, the movie was made for $300,000. And I looked at the trailer for the movie and I'm going, you know what? I can see why he spent that kind of money, because they're casting, the soundtrack. You guys can check it out. Actually, the trailer's on YouTube. It's called The Skeleton Compass. Look it up. The Skeleton Compass. So the guy that created that film, you look at it, you'll agree with me. The trailer looks very good. It looks funny. The movie looks funny. And it's a showcase basically for his son as far as an acting opportunity. I can understand that. His son is a good-looking kid. He looks like he's a pretty good actor, and he's done work with some notable people like Kevin Costner and stuff like that. He's been in some he's done some, you know, small work in bigger projects. So it's like I can't blame the dad for wanting to give the kid an opportunity, you know, and why don't we just like create our own movie and do it that way? That's what I did. I mean, I created Healed by Grace as an acting vehicle for my daughter. So, you know, that's cool. And, oh boy, you know what? I probably, forgive me guys, I shouldn't have. I should have either not said the budget or I should have not shared the name of the movie. So forgive me, because that's really not information I should be saying publicly, I suppose. Not that it matters much, but so I'm actually, I have to say, I'm a little out of line to have stated the budget, but if I'm going to tell you what the movie is, okay. So forgive me for that, you guys. I shouldn't have done that. Anyway, but the upshot is that recouping, you know, as a vehicle to help someone's acting career, it's probably going to do great, and they're probably going to do great in general because it looks like a pretty good movie. But boy, to recoup the budget and actually have the movie be profitable looks like a dicey proposition, probably, to me. I mean, it looks to me like it would be pretty tough to clear that kind of money, because the problem is, how do you make people aware of it, right? How do you get enough awareness of the darn thing so that people want to watch it in the first place? And now you're into even more expense promoting it. The business proposition on entertainment really is not that great. You know, it's pretty, as I say, it's pretty dicey. Let's just kind of dive in here and do this. I guess we're in freehand mode. Yeah, I actually feel bad now that I said the budget, but I'm sure you'll forgive me if it ever comes out. But that's going to be a challenging proposition to recoup. Let's see, what color are his... I don't know what color his armband things are. Better go back here. Ah, they're gold. Oh, holy smoke. I've got his costuming wrong. You guys, I am an idiot. Look at this. I got the costume totally wrong. So, okay, kudos to Open Tunes and Tahoma, because look what we can do. We can actually procedurally change the colors and fix them. So, it does look pretty good. I know, Awkward Penguin, no kidding. Hey, Max. You know, I told the Mark, the producer, I said, look, I think you got a good looking picture here, but I do think it's going to be pretty challenging to. But you know, it was one of those deals where the more you talk to the guy, the more you realize actually recouping the budget isn't the most important thing for him. It's more a matter of just because it's an acting vehicle for the kid. It's more about, are the distributors going to do a good job and get it out there? And the basic answer to that question, I will tell you, is generally, I wouldn't count on it, right? You don't want to go with a distributor on the basis that they're going to somehow do a great promotional job, because that's really not what they do. It's really not what that's not really their business model. They'll go to the big three film markets each year, and then they'll pitch it for foreign sales, but you know, that's a dicey proposition too. I mean, I think the total foreign sales for my last movie was something like, it was probably like a total of $8,000 for like the whole world. Now, there weren't that many sales. You know, there was one sale to China. There was a sale to Australia, New Zealand. Why does it keep creating? It must be because the first one is a my paintbrush. That's kind of weird. So, yeah, it's tough to make a living in the entertainment space. So, figuring out the kind of direct marketing. What I'm trying to do here is just try to create a good show. I just want to create a good show. If I create a good show, eventually more and more people will be aware of it, and it'll find its audience and probably sort of open the door to other opportunities as well, right? That's all. That's all I'm trying to do. No big deal. And I think, we can all do that. There's nothing stopping us from trying. Just time, to a degree, B key. This needs to be autofill. There are time limitations. People have real jobs and blah, blah, blah. And can't necessarily give a lot of time to their dream. For me, I don't really know if it's a dream, actually. And by the way, let me look at this. I need to set... Let me see here. We need to enable that. And then look at this and see if the line... it looks like it didn't... Okay, that's cool. I was a little concerned because normally with vector-based shadows, I usually make the line width 0 so there is no actual stroke on the shapes, but it looks like that doesn't really make a difference. If the main idea was opening opportunities, then it could get the eyeballs on the actors. Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm sure it's going to do that. And, I haven't looked super close at the trailer, but I would say that it looks like the kid's a pretty good actor. I haven't really I haven't been able to screen it or anything. I just talked to the guy yesterday. But every once in a while I'll get those calls. I'll get calls from filmmakers or writers, people that are trying to write a screenplay. want me to look at their script, and is it something I'd be interested in producing? And I always have to tell them, look, I've really I've really written all my own scripts. I don't really look for outside scripts. Don't really need that, but best of luck to you, kind of thing. What are you gonna do? I mean, writing a screenplay is the easiest part of what I do here. The easiest part of making a film is writing the screenplay. By far. Oopsie poo. There we go. I better save my work. You're going to post a model you did for... Yeah, post it in the Discord, man. That's cool. I got a chance to finish working with... For Bill Tucci. I don't remember Bill Tucci. I don't remember who that is. Should I know that name or something? It doesn't ring a bell for me. Does not ring a bell. Hey, Yvette, how are you doing, baby? Valerie has been going nuts on her writing. She is, I kid you not, Yvette. And again, I might be hitting you up for advice on the self-distribution side, because Valerie at this point she wrote a book that was like a dystopian zombie thing. And then she set that aside and she started working on this thing that was kind of like, I think it's kind of more along the lines of what you're doing, where it's a modern... Valerie's walking through the room. How would you describe this series you're working on?
It's a modern magical type of book.
It's like a modern magical, so it is like an urban thing. There's like gargoyles and dragons. They appear as people most of the time, but then they have their own like domains that they go into.
We're in
And
this era, it's not in medieval times.
right, it's a modern thing. But she's actually she wrote this dystopian zombie thing. Set that aside, because she's like, I want to definitely write another draft. So but set it aside, and she starts working on this more lighthearted, fun, modern magical thing, fantasy basically. And she's feeling like her writing's getting better. She's comfortable doing it. She's enjoying the revision process, blah, blah, blah. And she cranks out a 300-page book, and then she cranks out a second episode, 300-page book, and now she's working on the third one. All in the space of... She's like you, Yvette. I mean, she's she's cranking out a book in about 6 weeks. And like I've mentioned here before, that to the degree that I've read it, I've been shocked, because I had never seen any writing that Valerie had done before. But when I was looking at and she's been kind of cagey about showing it to me. Don't ask me why, but that's just Val. But boy, what I saw of the dystopian zombie thing, it was really good writing. I'm like, and believe me, I'm a tough critic. I've had plenty of people. I've pissed some people off because they come to me and they want my advice, because I'm Mr. Filmmaker guy, right? So they want my feedback on their script, and I usually have to tell them, you know what? It's not even close to being, battle ready. Not even close. But I do my best. I tell people the truth, and I give them my best advice on how they can improve it. And the last time that happened, I never heard from the person again. Like, I really ticked her off because I told her, and I'm like... So anyway, it's kind of amazing. Kindle Vella is what it's called. Okay, I will. I was wondering about that. So that's the Amazon platform nowadays that you said you were making some bank from it, and I won't ask you what the numbers are, but I've got pretty good... I have pretty good confidence in Valerie's writing, I must say. I think she's going to be able to... And of course, she has the advantage that she does have me, in the sense that we can always develop it into a comic book or an anime, or, we can do whatever we want with it. So I guess that's a bit of an advantage as well, but pretty cool thing, I think. Whoopsie poo. Looks like we got a leak. Your office is completely solar, huh? Where are you at? I thought you were. I don't remember where you said you're from. I was thinking it was out east somewhere, New York-ish area or something. How are you fully solar? You're not in Hawaii, are you? If you're in Hawaii, we might have to come and visit you because Val really wants to move to Hawaii. She wants to move there because of the climate, because her pain condition is so disruptive of normal life that having more predictable weather would be helpful. Delaware, okay, I thought you were out there east somewhere. Okay, guys, I'm going to take a 2-minute break. I'll be back in 2 minutes. So I'm going to let this loop. Okay, I'm back. And I remembered to turn my microphone back on. Okay, so where are we at here? Boom. I guess we don't want to hit L with our focus on the wrong window. But yeah, I told Valerie about the Kindle Vella thing. So I'm curious, Yvette, about your. I assume you're still here. About your writing methodology, because I've noticed Valerie has a methodology that's different than any writer I've ever encountered, and I'm not going to say too much yet about what that methodology is, but I'm curious, what's your methodology in terms of how you, okay, let me state my methodology first to give a sort of a starting point. Is I tend to come up with a concept, and as I've said here before, in about an hour I can usually pound out a plot. Okay, and so then I'll usually break that down into sort of an outline, and then I like Dramatica. Probably most authors don't, but I like Dramatica as an adjunct to the creative process, and I won't waste everyone's time explaining what Dramatica does, but it's basically a tool that kind of helps you find your story. And the biggest thing it does very well is it will always cause you to wind up with a plot that does not have any holes in it, that nothing gets dropped through the cracks. And then from there I just start writing, and then it's an interactive and iterative process between looking at the outline and kind of, sometimes I write in reverse, where if I've got to get somewhere, I will I'll think about what the destination is that I've got to get to, and then ask myself, okay, well, based on the current situation, what would have to happen in order to get there, right? So I'll write in reverse, at least as far as the tighter plot, what happens in the scenes, blah, blah, blah. So Valerie's methodology is nothing like that at all. Not even close. But that's what I do. And, but I'm curious if you care to share what your methodology is. Do you start with an outline? Do you have kind of a big picture on your series where you kind of know where the whole thing's going to go before you start? Do you make it up as you go along? I think for most people, I think I'm safe to say that for most writers, writing is a fairly linear process. I think normally you probably can go from, you're going to go from beginning to end kind of thing. When you use a tool like Dramatica, for me, one of the things I do like about it is you can quite safely, you could start in the middle and actually jump around, and you're not going to have to worry about whether you're going to leave things out or whatever, right? Basically. It's not totally true, but I don't know why I'm not getting these lines blocked. There we go. So you're a panster. I don't know what panster means. Most of my stories are true stories that I warp, like What If. What's a panster? Sorry for my ignorance, but I have no idea what that even means. Uh-oh. Got another leak, friends. You're a plotter. I'm more of a plotter too, but I'm a plotter always knowing that I've got Dramatica in my hip pocket as sort of part of the methodology that assures me I'm going to wind up with a tight story. So I won't deny I lean on that tool. Now there's things about it that are, I'll put it this way. I wrote at least 3 screenplays where I started out using Dramatica and then bailed on it partway through because I just wasn't either proficient enough using the tool, or for whatever reason I gave up on it. The last couple, probably 2 or 3 screenplays I've written, I did one commission where a guy paid me to write a screenplay kind of thing, and then the last 2 movies I did myself, which were Clerical Errors and then Healed by Grace 2. Both of those were written pretty tightly with a very Dramatica-centric workflow, and it really helped for me. Panster or plotter? Writing from the seat of your pants. Okay. So you know what? That is closer to what Valerie does. So it really surprised me. But what she does, I'm not joking. This is no exaggeration. She starts writing with no idea where the story's going to go, and she puts herself in the place of the characters and allows the story to just go in directions that feel right. And then when things feel like they're starting to go off the rails in some way or not quite working, she'll throw out 80 pages. She'll backpedal and throw out just in the last 2 weeks I'm aware of one time when she threw out 40 pages and another time when she threw out 80. So she's about 100 pages into book 3 in this series, which again for me is kind of amazing because I'm a pretty fast writer, but that's pretty fast, for novels. These are 300-400 page books, and that's at 8. 8.5 by 11 word processor. Once you kind of shrink that down to like a 5 by 7 or whatever the dimensions are of a paperback, I'm suspecting she's probably into quite a bit higher page count. But that's another question I would have for you. What have you found is the relationship between your page counts in a regular word processor versus what they come out to when they're printed? That would be an interesting thing I'm curious about. But I got nothing but respect for, what Yvette's doing because, she's just doing it, No need for permission, no need for, just do it. Just go, right? I think that's super cool. If it succeeds, it succeeds. But if it doesn't succeed as well as you hope, it's not that big of a loss, when you're cranking out. What I like about it is this is why I'm way more enamored of the television world than the film world. Okay, so I've made 90-minute movies. I don't know that I would ever make another 90-minute movie. Maybe I would. I know I'd make some money if I created another chick flick horse movie, just because I have a little bit of a cachet in the family-friendly film world. So a third movie in the series would probably do okay. You know what I mean? So. It's always kind of out there. Like I've had, I had a major horse facility tell me when I did Healed by Grace 2, they're like, yeah, if you ever want to like do a series or whatever, we'll open up our facility to you so you can like shoot here and, so depends on the printed papers. Well, I figured that. Hey, Maria. You have to pull back on research and pack everything into a 2-act play. But I like that. Okay, so let me restate the question, Yvette, a little better. Does it come out to more pages or less? And if it comes out to more, what's the basic ratio? I mean, is it double? Is it about 1.5? That's all I'm asking. I'm just kind of curious what her page counts might turn out to be. But yeah, you're right. With an ebook, all you have to do is resize your screen and the page count instantly changes. So there is that, obviously. Boo-doop, boop, ba-doop, doo. So this is kind of fun today, getting back into episode 2. Is anybody here who wasn't here when I started? Because if you guys are curious, I'll jump back into Reaper and kind of show you what's going on with Assault and Light webisode 3. I've been working on the soundtrack, the music, and all the voices are in. There's a few sound effects to add, but so if anybody's like dying to see that, obviously you could go back and watch the first part of this live stream as well. Okay, that's got a little bit of I'm outside the lines, but you know what? That's a 1-frame tween. Nobody's ever gonna see that. So BRB 30 pages in. Okay, so now this is interesting, Amar. More, but there's too many factors. Okay, that's fair. That's totally fair. I'll buy that. Okay, gotcha, Maria. I'll give you guys a quick taste, I guess, if you're curious. There's not the biggest thing is I was hoping Darren was going to show up tonight because I actually wound up doing the voice of Vespar almost as Darren T. And I really would, I'd swap him in my place, no problem, But so I was working on the score, and so webisode 3 is pretty close to being, it's not going to be too long before it's release ready. So as I predicted, it went quite a bit quicker than episode 2. And I think from here on out, they probably will be a little quicker. So I'll give you guys a little schmackerel.
Why, Asher? Ah, Asher. How long has it been? And to what do we owe this visit?
It is always an honor, of course, to stand in the presence of the king. But now that you mention it,
Ah. Here we go.
there is the small matter of taxes. The people are taxed beyond what they can bear.
You help the people in your way,
Which we greatly appreciate, Asher.
and the king provides relief in his way.
How generous of you. You tax the landowners until they cannot pay their servants. Then you annex their lands to settle the debt. Wealth that is stolen is no wealth at all.
Stolen? How dare you? You will leave
better
now
turn
and
that
return to the court at your peril.
So this
Is
part I
this
scored
your
today.
will, Majesty? Or is Golek truly our king?
You are banished from this court until the rains come.
As you command, Majesty.
So we'll skip this section, and then when Vespar comes in,
Just talking about you, my son.
Father, I saw Asher on my way in, and he didn't even speak to me.
so as you can see, as I mentioned early in the live stream, I chose to play the royals as British, which doesn't make any sense at all because this happened 15,000 years ago. But I thought, you know what, the audience will be able to grab it real easy. It will be a familiar approach.
Just talking about you, my son.
So that's what I chose.
You're
to
on
do.
my way in, and he didn't even speak to me.
That meddler is an enemy of the crown.
What? Asher? The holy man?
I need to do
If
something
I may
there.
speak, Highness,
Yes, by all means, Tobias.
one might say that Asher is the voice of the people.
Yes.
Well, surely the king must hear the people's voice in order to rule with wisdom.
Majesty, I venture to say there are more pressing matters to attend to than Asher.
And indeed, I have matters to attend to as well, Highness, with your leave.
Of course.
Father?
Well, you're very nearly a man, aren't you?
I guess so.
We feel it may be time for you to take a wife.
Wife? I don't even have a girlfriend.
Okay, so you guys get the idea. Sifter, you're correct. I'm super glad you noticed that, Sifter, because you're completely right. That is actually a really important part of the story, in the sense that Vespigi, Asher has been around ever since Vespigi was like 12, younger than 12 years old. Ever since Vespigi's been alive, Asher's been there. He's been part of the community. Vespigi is, he's always a little irritated by the fact that Asher comes into the court every once in a while and makes these sort of prophetic pronouncements that don't really favor Vespigi's policies as king. But Vespigi tolerates him because Asher is widely regarded as a critical part of the community. He's the one who goes out and feeds the poor, and this is actually he's really a valuable resource, right, to their land. And everybody knows Asher, and as I say, in a kind of a weird way, Vespigi's kind of fond of the old coot, you know. Well, Golek, on the other hand, can't stand Asher because whenever Asher is exposing Vespegi's bad policies, what he's really doing is uncovering Golik's nasty schemes, because it's always Golik that's sort of convincing Vespegi to do things that aren't necessarily in the best interest of the population at large. So that's sort of the socio-political problem that they have, right? And in this case, I don't think I showed it here, but in this case, the king goes ahead and dismisses Asher.
You are banished from this court until the rains come.
And that's because,
As you command.
you know, sort of here in the court, you know, Vespegi's kind of, Asher puts him on the spot. You know, what are you going to do? And he has to do what he does as king, which is send Asher away and tell him, you know, don't come back if you're going to talk to me like that, kind of thing, right? And as you can see after he does that, if you look closely, Vespegi feels bad about it. His shoulders kind of drop. But Golik, on the other hand, is happy. He's like, ha, 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 you know, got rid of the old guy. So it's an interesting relationship dynamic between these guys, because they've all known each other for years and years. But the bottom line is that in this episode, Golik convinces Vespegi that marrying off Vespar is a good idea. And the reason Golik wants to marry off Vespar is because he wants to marry off Vespar to Tianara, the girl we met in the last episode, who is the daughter of Carliana, who's a very wealthy landowner from the north. So you're basically trying to marry the royals off to other, you know, sort of upper crust people, is the idea. The only catch is, what Golik doesn't tell Vespegi is that Carliana is actually his distant cousin. And part of Golik's plan is to find himself a windy pathway, potentially, to the crown. And getting his relatives actually related to the king is, again, it's a windy pathway. It's a risky proposition. It may not work. But remember, as I've maybe mentioned here before, Golik is, at the end of the day, only the top-ranked slave. Okay? But he's still a slave. So you can kind of empathize with the guy that he wants to better himself, and he doesn't have a lot of pathways to do that. And he's kind of a snaky guy. So that's the plan he's hatched. So anyway, that's what's coming together in episode 3, and then happily in the very next episode we will get back to Melchizedek and keep the thing moving forward. So yeah, that's what's going on. Something happened to Asher way down the line, and the king might not be part of it. Well, I tell you what, Sifter, let me just say that there's a lot that is the whole 3-year series of 12 episodes. Not necessarily 3 years, but however long it takes. But the whole 12 episode series, insofar as the big plot that runs through the entire series, that's all. It's not written, but it's all plotted, right? And it's a really cool. I don't mind saying, and I wouldn't say it if I didn't really believe it, but it's a really cool epic. Some of the things that are going to happen are inspiring. There's a lot of interesting heroism that has to come out of people that you might not expect it from, and there's plenty of surprises along the way. Now, the specifics of each 24-minute episode are not planned out, because my plan was to say, okay, let's weave the greater epic story into these 12 episodes, and then, but each episode is a standalone story that, you know, makes some social commentary or whatever. You know, it's basically, I'm not trying to wear my own, you know, politics on my sleeve too much or anything, but, you know, I'd envisioned, you know, I could see having one episode that kind of deals with the Luka and Melchizedek wandering into a village where, on the outskirts of the kingdom where women are really oppressed, let's say, or I'm just throwing that out there as an example. So each episode is intended to have some commentary or, greater ethical issue behind it. It's not a religious thing. I specifically did not want to make this a religious show at all. And that's one of the reasons why it takes place 15,000 years ago, because it's really before the major religions of the world today existed, right? So, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be cool. I mean, I believe me, I would not say that if I didn't really believe it. It's a cool, epic saga. And really, honestly, as I say here so often, as an animator, I'm a pragmatist. Animating's fun, but it ain't that fun. You know what I mean? It's not so fun that I'd be sitting here doing it if I didn't really have a lot of enthusiasm for the characters and the story. I sound like Jeffrey Katzenberg here talking about Beauty and the Beast back in 1992. It is all about the characters and the story. If that didn't grab me, I don't think I could sustain the effort of doing all the animation, I have to care about the story that I'm telling, and so I don't think you guys are going to be disappointed. I wish it didn't take so long, but you know what? It is what it is, so. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to do, people. So I suppose the good news here today is that I expect that I might have webisode 3 out by the end of the week, actually. We'll see, but based on the pace of doing the musical score the last few days, I would say, which is kind of amazing considering that I've been totally buried in doing just commercial related work, stuff for my website clients and stuff like that. It's been a very busy week dealing with some technical issues and stuff as we transition to a secure server and blah, 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 blah. Alright, so we got to get these shadows in here. But yes, I think it was a coup. Do the voice of Vespar is... I don't know who the actor was who did Colonel Hathi in the Jungle Book, the elephant. But he was the same guy who did... I think his name was actually the Colonel in 101 Dalmatians.
The dog is this. You're talking to Sergeant Tibbs. Sergeant Tibbs.
Yes, Colonel.
Oh, balderdash.
Yeah, so I just decided I'm gonna do that voice for Vesvigi. What the heck? He kind of looks like that, with the big beard and everything. So I don't know. I feel like it works. I know you already know how to compose music, but I just learned. I post an animation with my music on my channel. Hey, I'll check it out. I will check it out. What are you using for composition as far as software tools or whatever? Because I seem to remember you talking, I think you were talking about Audacity maybe back in some months ago. I seem to remember a conversation about Audacity. J. Pat O'Malley.
J. Pat O'Malley. Well, leave it to Maria Torres to know the answer to that question. Well.
I always liked that character. And I think I can do him pretty well, so what the heck.
So that's what we'll do. We can do whatever we want here.
I get to do whatever I want because it's my channel. And you guys can't tell me no.
Alright, keep going here, baby. Keep going. J. Pat O'Malley. Thank you for chiming in with that, Maria. And I also like the voice of Vespa. I think it'll be interesting when Vespa finally meets Tianara and he's feeling very uncomfortable with the situation. And yep, he was the Colonel, yep. Fruity Loops. Oh, hey, Fruity Loops. I tell you what, Fruity Loops has been around for a good long time, and it is a venerable program that, especially if you don't mind step sequencing, it's quite a capable program. No, you could use if you're going to use Audacity for composition, obviously you're recording live instruments, or you would be. I mean, back in the day, Sifter, that's what we all had to do. You know, before we had samplers, you know, you literally had to record stuff analog, one track at a time. I mean, that would be before your time. But yeah, that's kind of how we used to have to do it. You had to actually know how to play your instruments and stuff back then. Now that hasn't been a thing for decades now. But yeah, you could use Audacity for composition if you had some other source to feed into it that you were recording. Like you could have a standalone keyboard, for example, with, you know, pretty good sounds that you could go ahead and record live if you didn't want to do like MIDI sequencing. It's a valid approach, actually, I believe. It's not exactly what I do, but I've been using samplers and whatnot for many, many moons. Many, many moons. Bum, 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 bum. I love that D minor there. The D minor, it's a chord that steps you out of the key that we're in, and it has a really nice tension to it. Do you use it? Right. Well, correct. When you're talking about the destructive aspect, you know, I have mixed feelings about that. I mean, if you think about it, that's when I bake down animation in Krita, instead of keeping everything in a million layers, I'm really doing the same thing. There's no difference between baking down an animation and taking, say, a recording of a MIDI instrument and rendering it to a WAV file and basically committing to it. And what I have found is there is a certain creative freedom in committing to ideas and actually baking them down to where it's like, okay, you can't change them, kind of thing. I think it comes from the same principle that it's the limitations that actually spark your creativity. You know, and if you have nothing but to be fair, I mean, the entire industry disagrees with me, right? And it's why we have nodes in Blender now, you know, geometry nodes, because the industry understands that a procedural workflow, which is what MIDI recording is more like, because you're creating data that you can then massage and modify in different ways or assign to a different instrument if you wanted to, or blah, blah, blah. A procedural workflow for most people most of the time is definitely better. So, and I've had many situations where I've baked down my animation in Krita and then regretted it for a bunch of reasons I won't bore you with. Ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, bum. How are we doing here? Are we doing okay? I think we're doing okay. Let's see. 24 frames. Does that sound about right? Not bad. I'm going to let that actually render. Even DAWs have nodes now. Yeah. You know. Well, I mean, there was one DAW called... What the heck was that? Gosh. Oh, I can't remember the name of it now. But there was a DAW that was... they had a Linux version, too, quite a few years ago. You know, they were pretty early, but I cannot remember what it was called. But this program was pretty much node based. It was all about, it was like a tracker, you know, it was all about connecting up nodes for either instruments or effects. The thing about nodes that wins the day is that in a layer based workflow, the signal pathway only goes in one direction. It goes through the stack, right? So same thing in Krita, you're going, or Blender, you're going down through the layers in the grease pencil or through the layers in Krita. If you're node based, you can branch in any direction. Now technically in Tahoma you've got the sweet spot because with the schematic you can do that. So I can, if I want to, I can branch in different direction and combine things and reuse layers in different ways, and even reorder the compositing order of the layers, right? So a node-based workflow is definitely more powerful and flexible. Let's put it that way. Okay. So the question becomes, what are we going to do? LMMS? No. What's that? Is LMMS? That's the Linux copy of Fruity Loops. I can't remember what it's called. Linux something Studio. I agree, Sifter. Nodes make more sense. Anything that involves a creative workflow, nodes make more sense. If you can wrap your head around it, it opens up your creativity a lot. Just in the ability to branch off of a signal pathway in different directions and whatnot. And I think it's it's actually a more, from a programming standpoint, it's a more accurate, what do I want to say? It's a more accurate representation of what's really going on under the hood as well. And so it makes it easier to let's just say that programmatically, I think it's easier to think about how you would structure the software when you're operating in a node-based type of approach, because that's really what you're trying to do a lot of times in software, is you're trying to create standalone components that bolt together nicely and flexibly. Yeah, it's on. I wish I could remember what it was called. It starts with an A. I'm quite sure. Let me think about it. I'll probably think about it here if I give myself some time to think about it. I don't even have an archived copy of it. It was a good program, but it did tend to be crashy. I cannot remember what it was called, but it looked very much like a schematic. The interface looked like this, and then you double click on the nodes, and if this node was an instrument, then of course the VSTi parameters would pop up and stuff like that. And I just cannot remember. It seems to me that whoever it was, they sort of got in bed with one of the manufacturers. There was a company that was making standalone like keyboard workstations that were actually just a computer where they built the hardware. They were kind of a hot thing for a couple of years. They were selling these workstations because they'd come preloaded with a bunch, like megabytes of sample libraries and things like that. And for a few years there, they were kind of the hot thing. And gosh, I wish I could remember the name of that DAW, but. And they really didn't have a the track-based part of it. The interface was a little bit primitive. Okay, so here we've got. I guess we should just finish this drawing. Actually, let's just go ahead and pop up a pencil and get this sucker drawn. But if I think of it, I'll let you know. Now we're getting back into those Ku Klux Klan pointy hat things that probably not one of my greatest design decisions I ever made, but no, Cakewalk. No, I used Cakewalk back in the 90s. Cakewalk. I actually thought Cakewalk 9, they came up with a thing called wave pipe where they were getting latency on the mixer side that was getting close to real time, really before ASIO had completely taken hold. And I remember it being so amazing to be able to move the fader an inch on the screen, and it wasn't real time. Like the volume change didn't happen instantly, but it was it was only like, a couple hundred milliseconds behind, and I remember how amazing that seemed back then. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy, people. I better look at I'm gonna go over to my other screen here and look at Vespar's costuming. Oh, there we go. Okie dokie. I gotta get that costume going here. So he's got kind of a pendant thing, medallion or whatever. I don't really like this red color I'm using. It seems a little bit too on the dark screen. It's there. It's a little better. That's a little better. Okay, so he's got this. This is actually a this is actually stupid because guess what? How unusual for me to screw up a character's costuming. Gee, I've never done that before. Okay. So he's basically got this cylindrical kind of helmet thing. And then this comes down and it's kind of flattened out, and then it turns into sort of this decorative, we'll call it a wing dinger for lack of a better term. We'll call it a wing dinger. Okay, so I really shouldn't draw his arms because if he's going to walk up, which he does, so you got, once you put Golik in here, this is what's actually happening. So when Vespar walks up, we need to really have his arms probably on separate layers so we can wave his arms. Wish I could remember the name of that software. By gum and by golly, I just can't remember. Okay, that was a little sloppy. How are we doing on time? Holy crap, I've been going for 2.5 hours almost? Jeez. I did not realize. Oh well, we're having fun. That is crazy. I can't believe it. It's actually pushing 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. If you're into that Eastern Standard Time thing. Oops. Oh, come on. Seriously, dude? B key. That'll be in shadow. Yep, I do not remember what the name of that software was. Okay, this is really kind of wrong. We'll blame it on a dyslexia moment. Because really, this is supposed to be kind of like that. It's like he's got this. Tell you what we'll do. Let's grab color number 3 and let's erase it. So that, and now we'll go to color number 2, and I'm going to erase this and clean it up. But I need to get rid of number 3 so that it's not causing that quintessential OpenTunes smart raster level interference kind of thing that we've all seen too many times. It's one of those things that seems like it's a really, really bad, aspect of the software. But in truth, as far as being a real problem, it actually doesn't come up that often. That's been my experience. Hence, I don't agonize over that thing too much. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. You're not missing much. Bam. Yeah, it's kind of sort of about right. Oh, yeah, and Yvette asked if it was called Cakewalk. No. Like I said, I used to use Cakewalk. Cakewalk was my main tool, actually, for quite a few years. Cakewalk, and then it became Sonar. And Sonar had some goods and some bads, For me, I think the things that they thought were improvements in Sonar, for me, were not improvements. The workflow is actually clunkier. And I can't say, Reaper's not perfect, but it's very, very good. I put on the Discord the link to Mackie Traction. If you guys want to try a free DAW. I mean, Reaper's free too, really. I mean, because you can use it as long as you want, and you just get an egg screen, so it's no big deal. But Traction, did I say Mackie Traction? I hope I didn't say Mackie, because it's not a Mackie product anymore. Traction used to be my, when I was kind of between DAWs, if you will. I was a Cakewalk guy, and then I was using Traction for about, probably a year or two. I was using Traction a lot. And then when Traction got bought by Mackie, it just turned into a piece of junk. I mean, it was so buggy, and they really wrecked it. But Mackie's a pretty crappy company anyway. They always were. I hate to say it, but it's true. Okay, so that's what we do. He gets up there, and then he looks over like that. Oh, that's a pretty good drawing. I like that. Okay. That's what I did. I did not remember that. Well, let's be bold. As long as we're here and we're having fun, let me try. I need to get rid of that part, though, because that's just plain wrong. I think that'll work. Yeah, I'd have to go through my software archives to remember what the name of that stupid program was. Yeah, probably. That's a little bit, might be a little bit thin there, but it is kind of what I was going for. Yeah, not too shabby. Believe it or not, I didn't realize you had a completely independent. Well, maybe it isn't. Let's turn this off and then see if it comes back on over here. Okay, yeah, I guess it is in both places. I didn't. After all this time, believe it or not, I didn't really realize you could do onion skins over on the level strip. That's pretty sad, isn't it? How could you not know that, Dave? Really? Really, dude? Come on. Get your act together. So Traction, there is one catch with Traction, because I tested it a couple days ago, and the catch with Traction is um, that you're supposed to be able to load a video and use it for scoring. Okay, so back in the day, and we're talking 10 years ago now probably, when I was using Traction, it was like not great, but you could load QuickTime files. Okay, so that was the stipulation. If you want to load a video, it's going to be a QuickTime. You couldn't load AVIs. Well, guess what? Traction now can load MP4s and all that. The problem is it doesn't actually work, which I found a bit shocking because, see, Traction was created by a guy named Julian Storer. And Julian created if you think about a cross-platform C++ library for cross-platform application development, kind of like Qt, same idea. He created one called Juice, J-U-C-E, and it's quite good. Okay, and it's got a lot of features specifically targeting digital audio, in addition to all the interface widgets and all that kind of stuff. So, anyway, Julian, who can blame him? He had the opportunity to sell Traction to Mackie, so he did, and then Mackie destroyed the program. Well, and then Traction just languished, just like kind of in the ether for years, several years. Well, Julian, I think Mackie either is defunct or gave up on trying to make any money with software or something, but basically Julian got back control of Traction. So in the meantime, in the interim over the years, he's been just promoting and developing Juice as a cross-platform, development platform. I'm using the word platform in two different ways. Platform meaning operating system, so you can write a program with Juice that will compile for Windows, Linux, or Windows. And also platform in the sense that it's a framework. It's not really a framework, but it's a platform in the sense that it's a lot of pre-built widgets that make it relatively easy to create user interfaces and things like that, that again are going to be cross-platform. So that's what Juice is all about. So anyway, I figured when Julian's a good guy, and when he got control of Traction again, I figured things are going to bode well for Traction. And indeed, the latest version that I posted the thing on Discord is way more performant than the version Mackie came up with years ago. It's definitely improvement performance-wise, and it's kind of lean and mean and clean. It might remind some people of what's the other DAW everybody uses these days? Golly, it just escapes me. Why do these names just like escape me when I try to think of them? You actually, the one I'm thinking of, you mentioned the other day, Amar, in the chat. What's the DAW so many people use? It's Live. It's called Live. Okay, so Ableton Live, right? So Traction feels and looks a lot like Ableton Live. But, I mean, Traction actually had it first because the program looks almost identical to what it did 10 years ago, which is a good thing. It was a lean, mean, interesting paradigm to the software back then that it has retained. The only downside is all my experiments, it was unable to actually load video files at all. They just wouldn't play. It would just say like video not loaded or something like that. So that was the only downside. Other than that, I could pretty well guarantee if you're looking for a free DAW, I can pretty much guarantee that Traction's going to be very, very stable, and you're probably going to be able to get done whatever you want to get done. Reaper's going to be better, though. Reaper is definitely more powerful. All right. I'm going to take another 2-minute break, and I'm not going to guarantee. I haven't used Bitwig. I don't know that I'm going to go ahead and do the color on Vespa, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this loop and I'll be back in a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to make a decision. Am I going to keep going, or am I going to go ahead and bail for tonight? I suspect I'll probably bail, and if you guys bail in the meantime, I won't be angry at you. Go ahead and bail if you got better things to do than sit and listen to me, but we'll see. So I'll be back in a bit, a couple of minutes. Okay, so we are down to 3 concurrent viewers, which means people are running out of gas, which, as I said, I don't really blame you. What do we have here? We need a hat, skin, the little brown thing. We need gold, and we need purple. So this is going to be kind of a muted purple. This is going to be kind of a gold, not too bright. We'll just pick a skin tone and that'll get us in the ballpark, and then we'll fine tune it. This is supposed to be just gray with a slight hint of blue. Is that it? That might be all I need. Alright, so hit the L key to turn that off. And let's see how we're doing on the leaks. Pretty well, actually. That's good. I guess we're going to need a bit of a shadow color for that as well. Right there. Bloomp. That's definitely way too bright, but we'll fix that. Needs to be a little more. Yeah, it's probably a little closer. Oh yeah, the brown. That's what I was forgetting. That. For that little section there, which I did not put the outline in here, so I guess we might want to remedy that. Okay, fill that. That should probably be a little darker, something like that, or as the good folks in Decatur would say, something like that. People in Decatur, Indiana don't say the word that, they say at. Yeah, like at, something like that. Do 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 do, wonk. Purple, royal purple. Ooh boy, is that ever too saturated. That was easy, wasn't it? Wasn't it? That's another thing Decatorites say, wasn't it? Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. Hello? I need to hit undo. There we go. Looks like we're going to need the freehand fill tool to get that. G key to sample the palette. F key for the fill tool so we can fix the little hiccups. And I see what I did. So actually these two guys need to be extended. We'll go to 42 for lack of a better idea. And then I'm just going to ballpark it and say maybe something like that will get us there. Let's find out. Oh, I can see another little issue right there. And one might want to have some whites of his eyes in there as well. So we'll use the V key for that. G key. Do some lassoing here. Again, G key to sample the palette. Boom. Boom. Okay, so let's go ahead and do some whites of the eyes. Hit the V key in areas mode. I've actually got the Smart Raster paint tool set to be like, so you can use pressure, and it actually works pretty well if you don't mind the lack of anti-aliasing, which really isn't a problem if you're like me and sometimes you just add anti-aliasing in post. So that looks like it might work. The whites of his eyes are too bright, clearly. Boom. Something like that. Now I'm going to hit the insert key. Boom, at a vector level so I can smack in some shadows. And, well, okay, I guess it created one there, so we'll go with it. And so that's going to go to there. And now we'll get some shadows happening. Normally 12 or 13 is where we want to be. Okay, so let's turn Golic off so that we aren't distracted by the old guy. Ba-doom, ba-doom, doom, doom. Almost done. I'm definitely not gonna fiddle with the background tonight. Gonna get this going, and then I'll just kind of put a little bit of a shadow-ish area there, little hint of wrinkles. I suppose the lighting is such that he probably would be shaded somewhat like that. And probably, so the other thing I've got to do obviously is give him his, oops, wrong level there, Jack. Give him his arms.
The spa will not be happy if you do not provide him with arms.
Well, which takes us, of course, back to Ukraine, where to have the EU vote to send arms to Ukraine, and then, as I said earlier, I don't know, I just heard it secondhand that there's some stupid bureaucratic process that has something to do with whoever, either maybe who supplies the arms, I'm not sure, but so yeah, they voted to send arms to Ukraine, but by the way, we actually can't do it. So we all sniff our noses and say how much we really wish the people of Ukraine well, and we hope they do fine, but we're actually going to just like stand by and not do a damn thing. Yeah, they're on their own, which I think is disgusting. Disgusting. But as I said earlier, if there's anybody from Russia here who has a different perspective, I'm totally open to hearing it. You know, I know my son Kyle's got some internet-based friends that he's made that are from either Ukraine or Russia, and possibly both, so he may have some insight there. I don't know. But the whole thing is rather I mean, how do you overstate the horror of it, you know? My initial take on it was this. When I heard they were going to be doing, you know, some negotiations. Oh, look what we need to do here. We've got to go into your, if you have this problem, go into your stage schematic. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the shadows for layer 2. We're just going to make it a child of layer 1. And that way. Okay, and with one little caveat, which is that we have to create an offset. Let me go ahead and turn Golik back off so he's not getting in the way. So I hit the A key, and now what we've got to do is get this lined up just perfectly. And once that's lined up, what did I do wrong here, people? It's not like we're using the plastic tool. Why is that so out of alignment like that? I'm a little weirded out here. Well, okay, let's do it this way. Let's go here. Oh, I know what I did. Let me think about this for a half second. I did not expect that. Okay, so the problem is that I drew the shadows against a drawing that was already scaled. Makes sense? So this is actually, let me look at the scaling on this. Let's go to scale. Yes, there's the problem. This is actually stretched short. I wonder why I did that. Well, I mean, he's basically made thinner. Oh, wait, no, wait, that's global. This does not quite make sense. In fact, I think it would be the opposite. Let me check, but I think I'm right about this. Yes, we have to actually do the opposite. So if it's 89%, we'll just say 90. Let's call it 90. Okay. So this should actually be something pretty close to 110%. I'll bet you. Bet you, bet you, bet you. Yep. See? Told you. Okay. So this can be deleted. And why in the heck? Yes. And so, of course, I drew that. Oh, I'm so silly. I drew that in the wrong position as well. So here's what we'll do. We're going to cheat like the dickens here. What we're going to do is put this keyframe here so that we can actually just cheat and add a second keyframe here. And that's a kludge, folks. That's a kludge, but it will solve the problem. So let's turn Golic back on. And now, as you can see, there we go. Not bad. Now there's one problem. There is one problem, but I don't think I want to deal with it tonight. And the problem is right here. You can kind of get away with it, but basically this really is a bit too narrow. This needs to come out here a little bit like that. So I think that's it for me. So yeah, Bitwig. I've heard of Bitwig, I think, but I don't know anything about it. So I'm going to look that one up. Bitwig. Bitwig Studio. Oh yeah, that looks a lot like it looks a lot like Moo Tools. Wow, it looks a lot like Moo Tools. Huh. Yeah, so this is Bitwig. I was kind of tight with this guy for a while, who we had many conversations. He's actually an Eastern European as well, and he created a program back in the day called Musys, Musys. And Computer Music Magazine, they had a version of it that was like a stripped down version that they gave away all the time. And he got sued by Avid because somehow Avid knew or had some kind of claim to the name Musys, and they basically destroyed the guy's life. So he gave up on Musys and just kind of let it go, and then he created this software called Moo Tools or Moo Lab. So as you can see, looks kind of similar to Bitwig. And this is quite a capable program too. It's not as feature rich as Live or anything like that, but it's basically the same concept. And this is all the work of just one guy. I mean, he's a pretty amazing programmer. But yeah, this looks quite similar. What does it cost you to buy it, I wonder? $100. So yeah, there you go. That's pretty typical. Or if you want the real version, $400. It's kind of similar to Clip Studio Paint, I think. Not too far off. Okay, can we fix this? Let's have a little bit of fun here before I quit. I'm just going to grab this from here to here and see if this is even possible. I'm hitting the control key. We'll see how viable this approach is. This is as close as you're going to get to sort of the liquefy kind of thing in OpenTunes or Tahoma. But as you can see, it's not too bad. It's not really exactly good enough, but it's not too bad. Go back to the B key. So now you got obviously a bunch of cleaning up to do. We'll give it a crack. Why not? Something to do. Keep us out of trouble for a bit. So the biggest problem is that the lines are now a little too thick because of the sort of interpolation there that has to take place. Understandable. A lot of softwares have that problem. Now the V key, so I can just hand paint this. Not bad, you know, not bad. Not horrible. Certainly functional. The main reason it's a little problematic in this case is because once he turns his head, that's a pretty, I'm going to change this, by the way, to lines and areas so that it covers up everything. I can tighten up that edge. Once he turns his head, we're sitting on that pose for kind of a while. So I'm going to go ahead and just paint this in. This is not a bad way to work. You guys might want to try it. Is just use the Smart Raster paint tool to just paint in the shapes and kind of work in reverse. Then go back and somewhat carefully add your outlines over top of it. And then let's see if that works. Let's hit the N key. So that's the actual size on screen. So this is really not too bad. If we go ahead and add anti-aliasing to him. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to do this. Yeah, let's add anti-aliasing. You're pretty much okay. See, look at that. That's not bad. That's gonna work. So let's hit the K key, and we'll let that sort of cache into memory. And then I think another question that's worth asking is, should I actually just extend this down a little bit and then put the other arm in there? Does he really need to be swinging his arms is the question. And I'm thinking no. Main reason being, all your attention is going to be on Golik, actually. And then once Golik settles, so actually that tells me another thing too, is that really, once Golik settles, what we really should do is have this happen a little bit later. Because otherwise you got a competition now between, are my eyes supposed to be looking at Golik or am I supposed to be looking at Vespar, right? So now at full speed, that makes more sense. Okay, and you could certainly punch him up a little bit with the plastic tool too. Give him a little bit more, you know, a little bit of bend, I guess you might say, in his body. So, but if we're going to go this route, which I think we are, then really we need to do a couple things. Number one, let's hit the G key, sample this, and let's just extend this. This should just be extended down. And I'm going to do this the simple way. I'm going to actually just put in an indication of that arm like that. I think this is going to work. I think this is going to work. Alright, something like that. Once again, hit the G key, sample this. V key, but put it back into areas mode so I can't accidentally overwrite the lines. There we go. Okay, so now, having done that, I can actually go like this. Grab all of this, Control C, go over here, hit Control V, and probably make it fit. Yeah, that'll work. Just a little tiny tweak right there. Yep, there you go. And then we'll put the B key to get that line in there. G key, sample that. V key, once again, we don't want to be in lines and areas mode because we don't want to accidentally overwrite the lines. S key to grab this little bit right here. Jump over here, Control V. Just copy that over. Yeah, you can see that. Yeah, that's actually not good. You can see that the change, so I'm going to have to fix that. That's a bit of a mess. All right. V key. Sample this. Go back into full on. Okay, how come it didn't grab the right color? So I'm just going to paint this in. Paint this in. And we'll see if it works. All right, and now G key, boom. V key, back to areas mode, and just clean that up. And yeah, I mean, we're talking about some pretty minor details there that you really can't see very well. So, ta-da. We'll crop that to the camera and see what we've really got. So, one thing I'm not liking too much is this skin tone. It's really not quite right for Golic. That's better. Yep, that's about right, actually. So, okay, and with that, I quit. That is it. That's 3 hours. So I got a shot done. Got to smack a background in there, that's for sure, but basically that looks pretty good. So, with that, as I always say, my friends, there will be more later.